As our ancestors hide in our DNA, so do their stories. As if hidden people were demanding that their stories be told. Some of my ancestors have been pressing me to do this, and their voices have found my ear, and they will not be quiet and at rest until I do this. And it has grown beyond whatever I had ever expected when I started. It's taken on a life of its own. And I guess it's the Irish part. The Irish are all about storytelling, and I'm telling this story about the family, and I'm telling it to anyone who has the Irish Daley DNA in their blood, and it's dedicated to the people who brought us here, the immigrants, the pioneers who made our family, and it's dedicated to the current younger generation and the future generations who have this DNA and will carry it on, because they need to know their heritage and who they are and where they came from. The Daley story starts back in Ireland. The political climate and the economic climate in Ireland were terrible. Patrick's immigration papers say that he applied in 1852. That would have been 4 years after the potato famine and the terrible, terrible starvation that went on in Ireland. But the tyranny had been going on for a long time also. They were Catholics did not have any rights to vote or own property. The Daleys lived near Dublin, County Dublin and County Meath, and they didn't quite bear the same brunt that the farmers in the poorer areas did. They weren't forced off property. They didn't apparently own large farms, but it was probably economic. And my great-grandfather, Patrick, being the oldest, we think he's the one who came here first. They settled in Auburn, New York, the 5 children. And Auburn is near the Erie Canal. So they might have worked on the Erie Canal, they might have taken the canal on their journey. There's no record of how they actually came, if they came by ox cart or if they came by train part way or how they got here. But the Auburn, New York location seems to have figured in with most of them, and then some went to other states. The Irish were heavily concentrated in this Elba area. They came here apparently as farmers. The 2 that I know of for sure did go into farming when they came here, and they did well. They were pioneers, but they came here after the Yankees. The Yankees had really broken the sod and moved on. They had small farms. They didn't have big herds like we do now. And they probably had sheep and pigs and chickens. So they did all that hard work. And then gradually over the years, the farms got larger and larger, and the smaller farms were consolidated. And my grandfather owned 2 farms and had over 200 acres that he and his 3 sons were farming at one time. I am Mary Daley Jones. I'm 3rd generation American. My parents and my grandparents were born in the United States. My great-great-grandparents were born in Ireland. The first date that we have on anyone is Jane Malloy. She married Thomas Daley, and that's without an E. She's buried in Iowa. Their oldest son, Thomas and Jane's oldest son, Patrick, was my great-grandfather. We also have a copy of his marriage certificate in Auburn, New York. He married Bridget Carey in Auburn, New York, and they moved to Elba, near Columbus, Wisconsin. And they lived on a little farm on the river next to St. Columkill Church, which is the heart of our story, of our family. Patrick died at age 36 of an unexplained accident in the fall and left 3 daughters and an unborn son. That unborn son was my grandfather. He was Patrick Joseph Daley, but eventually he went by Joseph Daley, and he's the one who put the E in Daley for the Wisconsin branch. After Patrick's untimely death, Bridget lived on the farm for about 4 years, and her brother helped her out. Then she married a widower with 2 sons and moved to a farm that she helped buy. She had money to add to it. They bought a new farm, and she married Michael Caffrey. It was called the Caffrey Farm until my grandfather grew up, took over the farm, paid off his siblings, and built that farm up to over 200 acres. That's where my father, Joseph, grew up. He was the 7th child and 2nd son of Joseph Daley and Susan Manley, who were my grandparents. Joseph and Susan, my grandparents, were very good people, and I remember both of them. They conveyed to us a sense of responsibility and a sense of respect for education, and their faith was very strong. St. Columkill was the center of their lives. They raised these 9 children on this farm, and they valued education. They graduated from high school even though they had to pay tuition to go to school. It was a 2-hour round trip by horse to get to school. They probably never missed a day unless it was a real blizzard. So the country school system that Wisconsin provided was a wonderful system that our family benefited greatly by. And I ended up teaching in a country school. So that it is a great part of our lives. My sister taught in country school also. So we all had that same kind of a background. We were very, very fortunate to grow up in that environment with those people.
I had to leave Austin School after the 6th grade to go work on the farm. But I valued education, and I saw that all of my children, boys and girls, had the opportunity that I was denied. In 1917, I was the clerk of Austin School, and I had the pleasure of signing the diploma of my son Joe. Also, 8 Daleys graduated from Columbus High School. And I'd like to remind everybody that that was a 2-hour round trip by horse and buggy. And I'm also happy to say that 4 of my daughters became teachers.
We had a pretty quiet life because we were on the farm and there wasn't much opportunity to get off. We could ride our bicycles up and down the road, which we did 2 or 3 nights a week. The neighbor kids would get together and we'd ride our bicycles around and be back by dark. About 1953, we launched a campaign to talk my father into getting us a TV set. We had been up to Columbus and looking through the hardware store window at a very white, bluish, snowy screen, about 12 inches, and we decided we needed a TV. So we spent several evenings trying to talk my father into getting us a TV set because it would make us much more worldly and well-informed and improve our grades and many other healthy things. Little did we know that he had already made arrangements to buy a TV set, but that was the way he did things. And on Saturday, the truck appeared with this giant wooden TV set, which had 3 stations, and and it changed our lives. It really was a turning point in America when the television set took over the home. My father became an ardent fan of Gunsmoke and other westerns. There weren't any remotes. You had to get up and walk across the room to change the channel, and my father pretty much controlled the programming. So my mother developed hobbies because she didn't care all that much for westerns every night. Our Aunt Jane, my mother's aunt, came to live with us in our house in the downstairs bedroom when she was 100 years old, and my grandmother couldn't take care of her anymore. So my mother volunteered to take care of her, thinking, well, she is 100. This won't last too long. Well, she lived to be 106 and a half. So she was in our back bedroom all those years, and she could see the TV set from her bed. I don't know how much she heard or understood, but she could see that. This is a woman who came from New York State in a covered wagon. Our family has, some of us have genes that like to live on forever and ever. And we have a lot of people who reach the 100 mark and more in our family. My grandmother was 101 and a half. Annie Daley was 101, I believe. We had an experience that most families don't have. In 1950, I started high school. My father, this was after the war, and the milk checks were starting to rise, and things were starting, the economy was picking up. My father went to town, again without us knowing, and he bought a beautiful sky blue Plymouth automobile. It was a giant car. It was not the biggest Chrysler on the market, of course, but it was a beautiful car. I think he paid $1,800 for this big blue Plymouth. It was a wonderful car. All 6 of us could relax in there, and we would wash it and polish it every weekend for a couple of months. We all went to Columbus High School, all 4 of us. We were all in the band, the Columbus High School Marching Band, which was a wonderful experience for all of us. We had a wonderful director, Mr. William Confair. He took our Class C band and he made us into a Class A band. It wasn't always pretty and it wasn't always fun, but we did him proud, and we ended up winning start first at state. So that was a really good experience that Columbus High School provided. They didn't have an art program, which is unfortunate. I think they had a little art by the time Joanne came along, but it was a small school. I think we had 350 kids from Columbus and the surrounding area, and we didn't have to pay tuition. By then, that was free public education for farm children also. All 4 of us graduated from there, and it was a good education. It was a good experience. Education was something in our family that was kind of in the genes. My mother and her 6 sisters all went to County Normal, which was a local school for training teachers. When they started in the 20s, it was 1 year. Then you taught for 3 years, went to a state college, and you could get another year, and then you could have a teaching degree for rural country schools, grade schools. My mother and her 5 sisters were teachers. My father's 4 of his sisters were teachers. So teaching was the kind of like expected of you. I had turned 18 in June and started teaching in August. This was the year Eisenhower was elected. And when we had the weekly readers to teach every week with current events, and when the kids asked me who I was going to vote for, I said, nobody, I'm not 21. The tradition in the family, now that there are more options for women, has changed. There are some cousins who taught and continued to teach. Some started teaching and then had families. But there are not very many people choosing education as a career now. And it is, I guess, a sign of the times. The times are changing, and we're in a different world. This Irish storytelling gene that has been at work like a force behind this whole project has kept the whole thing going, and I have felt throughout the whole project that there was another force at work helping me to do this project that I didn't really conceive of. And along the way, there have been so many people who have supported me in so many different ways. Of course, the first one being my husband Vincent, who has been there from the start, encouraging, supporting me by my side, behind me, and sometimes in front of me. But he's been my sounding board, my shoulder to cry on, my venting target, and he has been there every moment, even when he didn't want to be. And I can't express how much help he's been to me. He is truly my Prince Vince. I have also based all of this material on the research that was done by my cousin Garrett Ganser, and he is the grandson of Lucille Daley Chady, who was my father's sister. He has done a massive amount of research, and he knows everything about everybody's family. He brought the gave me access to the land contract material and the citizenship papers, and just massive amounts of facts and information. I'd have never finished it if I hadn't had all this help, and with Vince's support, my sisters, and my step cousin Mary Kay from the Iowa branch of the family, which we're now developing that aspect, and then of course Gavin LeMaid, who gave me the technological magic that I didn't even know could be done to put this all together and make it all happen. And we both hope that this whole experience is going to carry forward, that the DNA, the Daley DNA, is going to continue operating, but we hope that the people who have that DNA and that Daley genes will take the time to learn a little bit about where they came from and appreciate all that their immigrant pioneer relatives and ancestors did for them, because we are what we are because of them, and we need to pay tribute to them, and also to hope that the future generations will share this heritage and gain from it. discovered that if you listen to the hidden voices and visit the past, you will discover yourself and be enriched. I can't pass up this opportunity to teach one more lesson, the Irish toast. Repeat after me. Sláinte. In Irish, sláinte means health. Sláinte to all the Daley descendants on their journeys of life's discoveries. May Irish blessings be upon you. It's all about family, and keep telling the stories.